What's going on, you guys? It's the Motorcycle Boss, and today I got some leaky front forks to take care of on this 2007 V-Star 1300. Let's get to it. Subscribers, welcome back, and if you're new here, my channel is based all around motorcycle mechanics and how to save money, so if that sounds interesting to you, feel free to subscribe. I'm posting out videos every once in a while, just trying to save you guys some money. So, today's project is going to be fork seals, specifically on a 2007 V-Star 1300. It's a little bit easier than you may think, it's actually a lot of fun, and you don't need as many specialty tools as you may think. I'm going to be upgrading the springs inside, changing out the fork fluid, changing out bushings. Everything's going to be basically brand new, and we're going to do a little bit of light modification on the fork covers. So with that being said, let's get to it. I followed a video on YouTube exactly how to grind this part of the bike open. Just make sure to remove the wheel, the fender, the brakes, and then you'll be good to go. First, we have to loosen the bolt at the bottom so that way we can get the damper assembly loosened. It's going to be a lot easier while everything is still under pressure so it doesn't spin inside. Be careful when loosening this top fork cap. Sometimes there's a lot of spring pressure depending on the bike, and it may shoot straight out, so make sure you keep your face away from it. Now to dislodge the fork seal and fork bushings, you're going to slide it apart, kind of like a slide hammer. Notice the copper discoloration. That means that the bushing has been worn through and needs to be replaced. Now this bushing has a coating on the inside instead of the outside, so just pay attention to that, and if it needs to be replaced, replace it. I'm going to replace it anyway. Always compare new parts to old parts to make sure you're replacing the exact same thing. By the time I got to this step, I already cleaned the inside of the fork tube with brake cleaner. I apologize for the missing audio in this small section, but for some reason my computer just didn't want to process the audio on it, but the file was totally fine. Now this bushing is going to have to be forced into place. In order to do that, it's going to be a little bit easier if there's grease on the outside, and then we're going to get it ready for insertion. Now the torch is not an absolute necessity when it comes to this build. It does help things move along a little bit easier, but it's not required. Now if you're concerned about the little plastic ring on the top of the fork, or right in the middle of the fork, don't worry about it. It's actually able to accept pretty decent heat. Just don't put the flame directly on it. Now I'm using a universal seal driver. This tool is very inexpensive and will allow you to do just about any fork out there. If you're interested in picking one up, I'll have everything that I use in this video linked down in the description so you can pick some stuff up for yourself. Now when installing this bushing, you only have to drive it until it's flush with the shoulder that the spacer sits on. You'll understand when you look at it. Now the top of the fork tube can sometimes be a little sharp, and when you put the new oil seal over it, it can bite into it and cause a new seal to immediately leak. To protect it from that surface, you could get what's called a seal bullet, but I don't have that, so I ended up just using a plastic bag. I've done it on tons of forks and it works every time. Now we're going to have to press this seal into place, and you could just use some PVC pipe to do this. However, I have the universal seal driver, so I'm going to use that. Highly recommend this tool. Now you only have to drive the seal down until you see the groove that that clip fits into. Now before we fill the fork up with oil, we have to make sure that the damper is back in the fork and installed. However, sometimes it can spin on you as you try and tighten the bolt at the end. So to keep that from happening, assembling the fork to put pressure on it is a good idea, and that's what I'm doing here. Now here are all of the torque specs that you may need in order to do this project. Keep in mind that these torque specs are from a 2007 V-Star 1300, so if your bike is not exactly the same year, make, and model as that, then you're going to want to pull the service manual for your bike. If you would like to get your hands on a torque wrench, I will list the ones that I recommend in the description. Now that the damper assembly is fully installed, we can remove all the internal components so we can get ready to fill with oil. After you add the oil, make sure that you move the fork up and down to purge any air bubbles out. Now I measured the springs in my forks and they were below service limits and required replacement. So instead of getting OEM ones, I actually got a cheaper version, which is actually an upgrade for this bike, from Progressive Suspension. Given if you're going to use stock or if you're going to use Progressive Suspension, springs will dictate a different oil height from the top of the fork when it's fully collapsed down to the oil level. Notice the old shorter springs and the new Progressive Suspension springs, which are way longer. The manual indicates that you should have the tighter coils on the bottom when installing to reduce noise. Progressive Suspension also sends a spacer that you cut to the appropriate length, and all I did was measure the old setup and added about 2 millimeters, and there you go. And don't forget to oil the top O-ring before you close everything up, and you're done. And that's the end of my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Keep in mind that everything that I use in this video will be linked down in the description, so that way you guys can tackle this job yourself. Now I do have some unfortunate news to share with you before I part, and we have a bit of a man down in the motorcycle community. There is a very prominent man in the YouTube motorcycle space known as Delboy, specifically the YouTube channel called Delboy's Garage. And he has been pumping out videos for years, and he recently came down with a heart attack. Fortunately, he's just alive and kicking, doing great, and he's focusing on his recovery in the meantime, taking a break from YouTube. I encourage anyone in the motorcycle community to go down and check out his channel. I'm sure you're going to find tons of videos that you're going to love. He covers everything from motorcycle maintenance, mechanics, DIY, modifications, just about everything under the sun motorcycle related. And Delboy, if you're watching this, I really am happy that you are doing fine. I was really scared for a moment, so I'm glad that you're still up and kicking. And Penny, hello. I've spoken to both of you on multiple occasions in the past. You guys are both some of the best people on the internet I have ever met, and I really hope that Delboy's recovery goes smoothly and both of you guys stay in good health. Now, just like when you have a biker stranded on the side of the road, we currently have a biker down, and they do have a PayPal tip cup up at the moment. I'll have it linked in my description so you guys can donate help contribute to medical bills and such like that. I'm sure a hospital stay is not cheap. So anything that you can do to help, I'm sure they would appreciate it. And Penny, if he's trying to get back to work too fast, slap him for me. I would really appreciate it. Make sure he focuses on his recovery, so that way when he gets back to work, he's going to be that much safer. Now, if any of you guys have any questions, recommendations, anything like that, let me know down in the comments. I respond to everybody. And that's going to be the end of my video. Hopefully you guys learned something. So ride safe, and I'll see you next time.